Federal marshals are executing property seizure orders against a sitting U.S. president. While Trump projects executive power from the White House, enforcement teams are filing liens on his most recognizable assets. The disconnect raises an unprecedented question. How does someone claim billionaire status yet cannot secure a $500 million bond? We'll examine the specific fraud findings that triggered this extraordinary legal action currently unfolding across New York. New York's enforcement machinery moved into overdrive after Trump's legal team made a startling courtroom admission. They informed appellate judges that posting the required bond represents a practical impossibility. No major surety company will back Trump for the $464 million judgment plus accumulated interest, now exceeding $500 million. Attorney General Letitia James had telegraphed this outcome months ago. Her office systematically filed enforcement documents across multiple New York counties where Trump maintains property interests. Each filing creates a legal claim against specific assets. The process follows standard collection protocols, but the target makes it historically unprecedented. This isn't theoretical anymore. This isn't some distant possibility. James has filed judgments in every county where Trump owns substantial real estate. Trump Tower in Manhattan, 40 Wall Street in the Financial District, 7 Springs Estate in Westchester, golf courses spanning New York State. Every major Trump property now carries judgment liens. That represents legal groundwork for seizure. That constitutes the preliminary step toward actually confiscating properties, and federal marshals are implementing court orders. They're executing seizure directives. They're placing liens. They're conducting property valuations. They're preparing for forced sales. This is actually occurring. Trump's properties are genuinely being seized. Judge Arthur Engoron's fraud ruling documented systematic property value manipulation spanning Trump's entire New York portfolio. Court records reveal a pattern of inflated asset declarations across every major holding. The evidence wasn't circumstantial. Documentary proof established deliberate deception. Mar-a-Lago exemplifies the fraudulent practices. Trump's financial statements listed the Palm Beach property between $426 million and $612 million. His valuation assumed residential development potential that deed restrictions explicitly prohibit. The property operates under permanent social club designation. It cannot be developed. It cannot be subdivided. It cannot be sold as residential real estate. Development value equals 0. Actual value derives from club operations. Based on revenue streams and comparable sales, court analysis determined $18 million to $27 million represents realistic market value. Trump inflated by approximately $500 million. Doral Golf Resort in Miami shows similar manipulation. Trump claimed valuations between $297 million and $345 million. Professional assessments placed actual value near $78 million. Trump inflated by over $200 million. 40 Wall Street demonstrates the pattern. Trump claimed his leasehold interest exceeded $600 million. Independent appraisers determined $540 million, still reflecting significant overstatement by more than $100 million. The Trump Tower penthouse appeared on financial statements at $548 million. Court analysis suggested $80 million to $120 million represents defensible pricing, systematic inflation across every property, systematic fraud across every asset, all proven through documentary evidence. Here's what makes this absolutely devastating. Trump cannot pay the judgment. His lawyers admitted this in court. They called the required bond a practical impossibility. They stated bonds of this magnitude are rarely, if ever, issued for individual defendants. That's Trump's own legal team acknowledging he lacks the money, lacks the creditworthiness, cannot secure a bond from any reputable company. So New York proceeds with seizures. Letitia James warned this would happen. She stated publicly, New York stands ready to seize assets, bank accounts, and rental income streams to satisfy this judgment. Now she's implementing what she promised, actually taking action against Trump's properties. The properties facing seizure carry enormous symbolic weight. Trump Tower stands as the flagship, the building bearing Trump's name in golden letters, the symbol of his claimed success, now being seized because he committed fraud. 40 Wall Street, another Manhattan trophy property, major office building, significant asset being confiscated to satisfy the fraud judgment. Mar-a-Lago, Trump's winter White House, his private club, his Florida estate. Liens filed. Seizure proceedings initiated. Doral Golf Resort, Trump's frequent bragging point, being targeted. Seven Springs family estate being seized. These aren't minor properties. These represent Trump's crown jewels, and they're all being confiscated because he committed systematic fraud. Trump's response demonstrates pure panic. Truth Social posts growing increasingly unhinged, calling it a witch hunt, claiming political persecution, alleging deep state conspiracy. But none of that changes reality. Courts found fraud based on evidence. Judgment was entered. Trump cannot pay. So properties get seized. That's not persecution. That's consequences. That's accountability. That's law functioning exactly as designed. Fraud produces liability. Liability produces judgments. Judgments produce collections. Collections mean seizing assets. Trump can scream witch hunt endlessly, doesn't stop Marshals from executing orders. The timing proves devastating because Trump serves as president currently, supposed to be leader of the free world, supposed to project strength and success. Instead, his properties are being seized for fraud. His business empire is collapsing. His supposed billions are being proven fictional. Difficult to claim presidential authority when you cannot even pay civil fraud judgments. Difficult to project power when Marshals are seizing your properties. Difficult to appear successful when everything bearing your name gets auctioned to satisfy debts. That represents humiliation on a massive scale. That's symbolic destruction of Trump's brand happening while he serves as president. This connects to broader patterns. The Deutsche Bank fraud investigations, the Epstein financial files, the Meadows cooperation evidence. All of it interconnected because property seizures prove Trump lied about his wealth, prove his empire was built on fraud, prove his billions were exaggerations, prove his business success was fiction. That undermines every defense Trump has constructed, every claim of persecution, every argument that he's a victim of political attack, because you don't get property seized unless you committed fraud, unless you cannot pay legitimate debts, unless you're actually guilty of what courts determined. Let's examine exactly which properties are being seized and what the process entails. Start with Trump Tower, the flagship, the building that made Trump's name nationally. 68-story skyscraper on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, Trump's penthouse, Trump Organization headquarters, retail space, residential units. Trump valued the entire building and his stake above $500 million. Court determined realistic value closer to $80 million to $120 million. That's a massive discrepancy. Regardless, New York filed judgment against the property. That creates a lien. That means Trump cannot sell or refinance without satisfying the judgment first. If Trump doesn't pay, New York can force a sale, can auction the property to the highest bidder, can use proceeds to satisfy the judgment. Consider what that means. Imagine Trump Tower being auctioned, the building with Trump in giant gold letters being sold to satisfy a fraud judgment. New owners strip Trump's name away, rebrand as just another Manhattan office tower. That's not merely financial loss. That's symbolic destruction of everything Trump built his identity upon. That's taking the property Trump used to launch his national profile and using it to prove he's a fraud. That's poetic justice. That's accountability that actually inflicts pain. That's a consequence Trump cannot spin away. 40 Wall Street represents another major target, 70-story office building in the financial district. Trump leases it from the building's actual owner, but maintains a valuable leasehold interest. Trump valued his interest above $600 million. Appraisers determined $540 million, still massively valuable, still a major asset, and it's being seized. Judgment filed against Trump's leasehold interest. If Trump doesn't pay, his lease gets sold. His income from the building gets transferred to whoever purchases the interest at auction. Trump loses connection to a prestigious Wall Street address, loses income stream, loses another iconic property bearing his name. Mar-a-Lago stands as the big one emotionally, Trump's winter White House, his private club in Palm Beach, the property Trump loves most, the estate he considers home. And the fraud there was most egregious. Trump valued Mar-a-Lago at $426 million to $612 million based on fantasy that he could develop the property into residential units. But Mar-a-Lago operates under deed restrictions, can only be used as a social club, cannot be developed, cannot be subdivided, cannot be sold as residential, so development value equals zero. Actual value derives from club operations. Based on revenue and comparable sales, court determined $18 million to $27 million. Trump inflated by over $500 million. That's not an estimation error. That's deliberate fraud. What happens next? Liens are filed against Mar-a-Lago, property Trump considers home, property that symbolizes his wealth and power, being seized because he lied about its value. Doral Golf Resort in Miami faces targeting. Trump bought it from bankruptcy, invested in renovations, bragged about making it profitable, valued it at $297 million to $345 million. Court determined actual value closer to $78 million, so Trump inflated by over $200 million. Now it's being seized, liens filed, Marshals preparing for potential auction. Major golf resort with Trump's name throughout being taken to satisfy the fraud judgment. Seven Springs represents personal property, an estate in Westchester County, rolling hills, large mansion, property Trump bought decades ago, considered a family retreat. Trump manipulated its valuation, claimed it was worth significantly more than realistic appraisals, used inflated value for tax deductions. Now it's being seized. Family property. Personal estate being taken because Trump committed fraud. That affects Trump personally. That's not just business loss. That's personal humiliation. That's family legacy being seized for crimes. Multiple golf courses across New York State face targeting. Each carried inflated valuations. Each participated in systematic fraud schemes. Each contributed to Trump's false financial statements. Each now faces liens and potential seizure. Trump won't just lose Trump Tower, he'll lose an entire portfolio of New York properties, entire empire within the state, everything bearing his name in New York being taken because he committed fraud there. The seizure process follows methodical steps. First, judgments get filed in counties where properties exist. That creates liens. Those liens attached to properties mean Trump cannot sell without satisfying the judgment. Mean creditors maintain claims against properties. Then, if Trump doesn't pay, enforcement begins. Marshals receive orders to seize properties. Appraisers value properties for auction. Auction houses prepare to sell. Public notices get filed. Bidders get solicited. Eventually, properties go to auction, get sold to the highest bidder. Proceeds go to satisfy the judgment. Former owners, in this case Trump, receive any excess after the judgment is satisfied. But if proceeds don't cover the judgment, additional properties get seized until the debt is paid. Letitia James has been explicit about her intentions. She publicly stated, "New York is prepared to seize Trump's assets, prepared to take bank accounts, prepared to garnish rental income, prepared to do whatever necessary to satisfy the judgment." That's not political rhetoric. That's a legal promise. That's an attorney general declaring, "We will enforce the judgment fully. We will take properties. We will collect the debt." Trump has no escape, no way to avoid paying, no way to protect his properties beyond posting a bond he cannot afford. So seizures become inevitable. Auctions become inevitable. Trump losing properties becomes inevitable. The Deutsche Bank records referenced in previous investigations prove the fraud underlying these seizures. Bank records show Trump submitted inflated valuations to Deutsche Bank, used fabricated numbers to secure favorable loans, then submitted deflated valuations to tax authorities, played both sides. That systematic fraud is what New York proved, what Judge Engoron found, what the judgment is based upon. So Deutsche Bank records support the seizures, prove they're legitimate, prove Trump actually committed fraud that justifies taking his properties, connect financial crimes to real consequences. The contrast with Trump's claimed billions proves stark. Trump always claimed to be worth $10 billion, ran for president as a successful billionaire, bragged constantly about his wealth, but now cannot pay a $454 million judgment, cannot secure a $500 million bond, must watch properties get seized because he lacks liquid assets. That proves the billions were always exaggerated, always based on inflated valuations, always fiction. Consider what that means. Trump isn't a billionaire. Trump is a highly leveraged property owner with significant debts and questionable valuations. That's the reality these seizures expose. The political damage proves catastrophic because Trump's brand was successful businessman, was billionaire who couldn't be bought, was dealmaker who always won. But properties being seized proves that was all lies. Proves Trump isn't successful, he's fraudulent. Proves he isn't rich, he's deeply in debt. Proves he doesn't win, he loses, and then lies about it. That destroys a core element of Trump's political identity, makes his supporters question everything, makes voters wonder what else Trump lied about. That's political death. That's brand destruction that cannot be rebuilt. The MAGA base reactions are splitting. Die-hard supporters claim seizures are political persecution, claim courts are corrupt, claim this proves the deep state is targeting Trump. But others, especially business-oriented Republicans, see seizures as legitimate consequences of fraud, see court findings as credible, see Trump's inability to pay as proof he isn't actually wealthy. Those voters start abandoning Trump, start questioning their support, start considering whether Trump was always a con man. Donors are fleeing. Major Republican donors don't want association with someone whose properties are being seized for fraud, don't want their names connected to someone who cannot even pay civil judgments, don't want to fund political operations of someone whose business empire is collapsing publicly. So money stops flowing. Campaign contributions dry up. Trump cannot fund operations, cannot compete financially, cannot pay for advertising and organizing. That financial disadvantage compounds political disadvantage, creates a perfect storm where Trump loses both support and resources heading into 2026 midterms. International implications prove significant. Foreign leaders watch an American president have properties seized for fraud. Watch Marshals executing court orders against a sitting president. Watch Trump's business empire collapse publicly. They make judgments, make assessments about Trump's stability, about the American political system, about whether Trump can be trusted, whether deals with him will be honored, whether he's a reliable partner. That diplomatic damage takes years to repair, undermines American credibility globally, shows the real cost of Trump's fraud beyond just domestic consequences. The connection to other scandals creates a comprehensive pattern. Deutsche Bank fraud led to these seizures. Epstein files show financial connections. Pardon schemes show Trump using power to shield allies from similar accountability. Meadows' cooperation provided evidence of other crimes. All of it connects. All of it shows Trump as systematically corrupt. Property seizures make the pattern visible, make consequences tangible, make abstract crimes into concrete losses. That's what destroys Trump completely. Let's discuss what happens as these seizures proceed, because the process takes months, but the outcome is inevitable. First, Trump will file every possible appeal, will try to delay seizures, will argue valuations are wrong, will claim the process is unfair, will throw everything at courts to stop auctions. But appeals won't succeed because fraud was proven with overwhelming evidence, because the judgment is final, because procedural protections were followed. Trump's appeals are delay tactics, not legitimate legal arguments. Courts will reject them, will let seizures proceed. Trump's only real option is paying the judgment, and he cannot. Second, auctions will be scheduled once appeals are exhausted. Once delays end, properties go to auction. Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, Mar-a-Lago, Doral, Seven Springs, golf courses, all scheduled for public auction. That creates a spectacle. Media coverage of Trump's properties being auctioned. Imagery of his empire being dismantled. Footage of other people bidding on properties with Trump's name. That's maximum humiliation. That's public failure on a massive scale. That's a consequence Trump cannot hide from. Third, bidders will emerge. Real estate investors, competing developers, maybe foreign buyers, maybe political enemies. Someone will buy Trump's properties, will pay market value, will take ownership, will strip Trump's name off buildings, will rebrand, will erase Trump's legacy from the Manhattan skyline, from Palm Beach, from everywhere. That erasure is symbolic death. That's Trump's identity being literally removed from the landscape. That's legacy being destroyed by his own fraud. Fourth, the Republican Party faces an existential crisis, cannot defend a president whose properties are being seized for fraud, cannot campaign on Trump's business success when his empire is being auctioned, cannot project competence when their leader is a financial failure. So Republicans must choose, stand with Trump and lose everything, or abandon Trump and face MAGA backlash. Either choice destroys the party. Either path leads to 2026 electoral disaster. Property seizures create a political crisis that ends Republican control of Congress. The 2026 midterm implications prove catastrophic. Democrats will run advertisements featuring Trump Tower being auctioned, featuring Mar-a-Lago being seized, featuring news coverage of Marshals executing orders, all proving Trump is a fraud, all showing a Republican president whose properties are taken for crimes. That's devastating political messaging. That flips suburban voters. That turns out the Democratic base. That suppresses Republican turnout. That creates a Democratic wave. That gives Democrats a huge House majority. That enables impeachment. That destroys Trump's presidency politically. Congressional oversight will intensify, because if Trump's properties are being seized, if he's financially desperate, if he cannot pay debts, then conflicts of interest multiply. Foreign governments could buy his properties, could gain leverage over the president, could influence policy through financial pressure. Congressional committees will investigate, subpoena financial records, call witnesses, hold hearings about Trump's debts and conflicts, make it a public spectacle, show Trump is compromised by financial desperation. That's impeachment evidence. That's grounds for removal. That's abuse of power through conflicts of interest. The base fracturing will accelerate dramatically. Even MAGA supporters have limits, can defend Trump against political attacks, can defend Trump against what they see as persecution. But harder to defend fraud, harder to defend inflating property values by hundreds of millions, harder to defend getting property seized because you cannot pay legitimate debts. Some MAGA voters will see seizures and realize Trump lied to them, realize his billions were fiction, realize they were conned by a con man. Those realizations break loyalty, create defections, destroy Trump's electoral coalition from within. The symbolic destruction of the Trump empire proves permanent, even if Trump somehow recovers financially, even if he rebuilds. He can never rebuild what's lost through these seizures, can never reclaim Trump Tower with his name on it, can never get back Mar-a-Lago as his private domain, can never restore his image as a successful billionaire. That symbolic capital is destroyed forever. That brand is ruined permanently. Trump becomes synonymous with fraud and failure, with property seized and empire collapsed. That's his legacy. That's historical judgment. That's how he's remembered. Not as president, not as businessman, as a fraud whose properties got seized. What's really happening is federal marshals are executing seizure orders, Trump Tower being targeted, Mar-a-Lago has liens, 40 Wall Street, Doral, 7 Springs, all Trump's iconic properties being seized because he committed fraud, because he cannot pay the $454 million judgment, because courts are enforcing accountability. Trump is panicking, raging on Truth Social, filing desperate appeals, trying everything to stop seizures. But nothing works. Appeals will fail. Process will continue. Auctions will get scheduled. Properties will get sold. Trump's name will get stripped. Empire will collapse. Brand destroyed. Legacy ruined. This is Trump facing the consequences of decades of fraud. This is accountability finally catching up. This is the empire built on lies collapsing under the weight of truth.